You're in the 06010 Focus. Fantasy Focus.
What's good, friends? Welcome into Fantasy Focus Football. My name is Daniel Dopp alongside Field Yates and Stephania Bell. It has been a whirlwind over the last couple of days of fantasy content for us.
I feel like I just saw you.
Honestly,
an hour ago.
We all just hung out doing the fantasy marathon. So going back to Friday or this weekend, right? We did the New York City live show, which was awesome. Always great being able to go check out with all those guys. Stephania, you did Good Morning America on Sunday, I found out. Congratulations for that.
Oh, thank you.
Right?
Whoa.
Burying the lead? I know. I had no idea.
More. Good Morning America.
Yeah. I was just a little bit, but it was part of a package they were doing on injuries in the NFL.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. How'd it go?
Thanks. I'll send you the clip. I got it.
That'd be great.
Yeah. You can check it out.
Have you posted it on social already?
I have not because I've been a little busy.
Yeah, because yesterday we all went like until 11 p.m. at night. It was a full day of fantasy content. Everything culminated with our Fantasy Football Now 3-hour show. Fielding was a ton of fun. I was a little sleepy afterwards, but like yesterday was a blast.
Yeah, yesterday was awesome. We have much more ahead today. And by the way, you guys can refer to me for the rest of this show as Field Yates of Yates, and Bell Lawyer JD, as I'm suited up right now at your service.
You're very Natalie dressed this morning.
Very Natalie dressed indeed. So Mr. Yates, if you want to call me that totally works for the remaining hour of this show. But we're having a blast today. Lots of good fantasy talk woven into basically every show on ESPN.
Yeah.
I'm about to go match wits with Stephen A after this. So him and I are going toe-to-toe.
Oh, that's going to be some must-see TV.
Popcorn is ready, you know. So we're going to have some spirited debates on First Take, and should be a lot of fun today.
Heck yeah, it's going to be a blast, and everything is going to finish tonight like it always does with our mock draft. Starting at 7 o'clock, ESPN2 Field, you're going to host everything for us, help us figure out what we're doing. But the mock draft that we do for the Fantasy Marathon is one of my favorite things that we do every single year. Just being able to draft on TV with all you hooligans and have some fun with it. I just think it's one of the best things we do.
It really is. It's fun. It's silliness. But we also make some good points. Well, some of us.
Some of us, yeah. Yeah.
Don't speak
There's a
for
reason why
everybody
Mike Clay's not here.
Yeah. A couple people make good points.
All right. Well, all that coming on later tonight. Make sure you check us out on ESPN2 and throughout the rest of the content going on here at ESPN throughout the day. It's going to be very fun to be able to dive into a little bit more of the Fantasy Marathon. I do want to give you guys a quick update. We had a new article alert, the 300 greatest players of the 300 years of ESPN Fantasy Football. It was a 30-round.
300 years of fantasy football. The dinosaurs playing back in the day.
300 greatest years of 30 years of ESPN Fantasy Football. We call it our retro draft.
Yes.
Looking back at players over the last 30 years to be able to put together a lot of really fun managers as a part of this field. You and I drafted a team. Eric Carabell, Eric Moody, Tristan Cockcroft, Mike Clay, Liz Loza, Tyler Fulgham, Matt Bowen, and our buddy John Parolin. We went through and did this. Go check it out on ESPN.com right now if you want to dive back into the ethers of what is fantasy football past. Yep. It's been very fun being able to figure out who you want to take. Field, I just want to quickly, when you look at your quarterback, running back, wide receiver one, you've got Marshall Faulk, Cam Newton, and Tyreek Hill. All
like
three of those guys were really good at fantasy football.
They were. So we had 30 years of players to pick from. So inevitably, we all ended up with some pretty good players on our roster. But who are your top quarterback, running back, and wide?
Yeah, I started with LaDainian Tomlinson and then Devontae Adams and Russell Wilson. Getting LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Faulk, though, I just wanted one of those like running backs. I wanted an anchor running back style, right?
Running backs are...
They're the best.
They're awesome.
They're potentially the best fantasy football running backs of all time.
Yes. Stephania, you want to break the tire? Who had the better quarterback, running back, wide receiver one trio?
Yeah, so the running back, you guys are tied.
Okay, that's fair.
You're tied there. Yep. The wide receiver, you both lose because how do you not have Jerry Rice?
Jerry Rice?
Because somebody
else took him.
I know, it was draft. But
actually, the reality is I have Jerry Rice on my team.
Do you?
It's just that Jerry Rice, so this is over the past 30 years.
Yeah.
And some of Jerry's best years
were prior to...
After 95.
I date myself.
Yeah, no big deal.
I'll excuse myself right now.
Yes, no big deal.
30 years.
Yes.
But then it comes down to the quarterback, and Field wins on that. Yeah,
Cam
sorry.
Newton over Russell
Sorry,
Wilson.
Cam
I even
Newton,
would vote that way.
Fantastic fantasy quarterback. So much fun. He was so much fun to watch.
Oh, he was great.
So
Apex
electric.
Game was awesome.
Yep.
So go check out the article. It's on ESPN.com. Pierre Piquet worked very hard on this. He ran a bunch of simulations, so you can see whose team
Nerd alert.
covers 30 years.
Yes.
Wins the league, and I believe there was a gigantic cash prize awarded to the winner.
Oh, wow. Really?
That's not true. No,
I was going to say.
you got a free hash brown and
Apparently
a
you
vitamin
didn't
water.
win.
Yeah.
You know what?
Because you did not know about
I'll
it.
tell you what, if you win, you get a trip to the Bahamas this year.
Hey!
The ESPN Fantasy Football Ultimate Draft Weekend is back for year 2 from August 21st through the 24th in the Bahamas. Enjoy an oceanfront stay at the luxurious Baha Ma Resort and exclusive events like our one-of-a-kind beach combine. Plus, you get to mingle with a bunch of celebrities and NFL players throughout the entirety of the weekend. You got Todd Gurley, Golden Tate, Kyle Rudolph, and Field Yates. Then you get some insights from your favorite ESPN Fantasy Football experts before drafting your squad at our epic live draft party. It was unbelievable last year, and we cannot wait to run it back again this year. So go check that out at bahamar.com/draft. All right. We're going to have some fun talking about some rookies today.
Yeah.
We're going to dive
Let's do
into
it.
a few things. Listen, not everyone was able to be here throughout the entirety of the pre-draft process. Some people are just getting into their fantasy podcasting season. So we thought, why not dive into some of the guys that maybe not everyone knows about?
Yep.
And I realize we're going to talk at the top of the draft. You're going to know some of these names because you've heard them a lot. However, Field, I'd love to go from 7 to 1. We're going to give your top 7.
Yep.
But let's slow play who number 1 is. And start at the back end of the
you
order.
gotta
Does that
make
sound good?
people Earn it here. So
Yeah, why
again,
not?
I think it's worth
Geez,
noting.
I
that,
wonder.
A little tease. Yeah.
Fantasy rookies and making a major impact is nothing new, right? Jaden Daniels last season was obviously amazing.
Brock Bowers crushed it.
Brock Bowers was terrific. Saquon Barkley during his rookie season, I actually learned this morning, had the most fantasy points by a rookie ever in PPR scoring in NFL history, followed by Eric Dickerson in '83 and then Cam Newton in 2011. So,
Wow.
Damn.
That's why you drafted Cam Newton.
yes, exactly.
That was it.
So
Okay.
rookies having a major impact is nothing new in fantasy, so it's important to dive in on them. Perhaps no rookie has seen his value spike and then fall and then perhaps find its level a little bit more recently, more so than RJ Harvey. Second-round pick for the Denver Broncos out of most recently UCF, began his college career at Virginia. RJ Harvey went late in the second round, which had people thinking to themselves, like, could this be a top 20 running back? Because that backfield was otherwise very, very thin.
Yeah.
And then the team signed J.K. Dobbins in, I think it was June. And you're saying to yourself, J.K. Dobbins, maybe he's not good enough to take away all of Harvey's value, but he's definitely good enough to impact things for R.J. Harvey.
Yeah.
For whatever it's worth, maybe something, maybe nothing. Harvey was playing a decent amount with the starters against Stephania's 49ers.
Saw that.
Preseason week 1. Had some good moments. Had some other moments where he was running a little bit like a rookie. He was trying to get it all in one play. This guy reminded me as a prospect of Bucky Irving from the year prior. Small running back who plays big as opposed to a small running back who plays small. Very good in the passing game as well. Sean Payton has talked for a long time, and we've been using this term surrounding Evan Ingram about his desire for a joker in the offense. And Sean's been clear that it's not a specific position a player plays. It's a guy who brings versatility to the offense.
He had one of those in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Taysom
Alvin
Hill.
Kamara, Taysom Hill. There's been guys who fit that category in a couple different ways, right? But in Denver, I think he feels like he now has 2 of them because Harvey can impact things in the passing game and in the running game for sure. The problem now for RJ Harvey is that not that the money for J.K. Dobbins was crazy, but the player's good enough and the money was real enough that if you told me that J.K. Dobbins handles 40% of the carries this year, or let's say that the split in terms of total carries is 60-40 in favor of RJ Harvey, that's enough to take away the value from Harvey's overall profile that he's no longer being drafted as a top 15 or 20 running back and instead is more like RB, 24 to 30.
Yeah. And this is one of those things that also don't draft early, right? Hopefully you're not drafting in the middle of summer because his ADP absolutely changed. But RJ Harvey's somebody that I feel like when we look at him in this offense, Do you still view him like when he was originally drafted? I thought to myself, this guy could be like a low end RB2 for your squad.
Yeah.
Now that J.K. Dobbins is there, does he feel more like a bye week guy or a flex play than like a solid RB2 for your fantasy
I
squad?
would say this. So, like, I think you need like that RB3 spot can like really impact your season's fortunes. I'm not breaking any news by saying that, but man, I just tell you, like every year you get into, I feel like that spot kind of defines like what the floor is for your team, because you're going to have some attrition, or you're going to have bye weeks, or one of your first two RBs just not going to meet expectations. And he has a very high ceiling compared to most of the players that are being drafted around where he is, does RJ Harvey, right? Because while J.K. Dobbins could have a real role, and I think he should have a real role, he's been a gigantic injury risk throughout his career. And RJ Harvey was taken in the second round well before they signed J.K. Dobbins. Shefty said this on a Back Together weekend at the end of July, that like the Broncos, I think that the J.K. Dobbins signing was more a matter of like, that player's still available and the cost is only that much. Like, we'd be crazy not to add him. They didn't do it because after they drafted RJ Harvey, they felt like they still had this massive need at running back. So if you told me which of those two players in the Denver backfield has a better shot to take the job and, no pun intended, run with it, it would be RJ Harvey. The passing game work, as I mentioned earlier, is legit. I had I think he was 65th overall, my final big board in the real NFL draft, which was well above quote unquote consensus. So I was a big RJ Harvey fan coming into this process. A little bit of cold water thrown on his value with the J.K. Dobbins signing, but you're looking for these guys who, relative to other RB3s, I know that we've seen a little bit of positive momentum for Javonte Williams, the player that RJ Harvey is sort of replacing. If I'm drafting a third running back relatively early, I personally prefer more of the archetype of RJ Harvey, where I think there's a way in which he becomes like a top 15 to 20 back, whereas Williams, maybe the Cowboys starter, I'm less optimistic about the upside in that offense.
Gotcha. I look at him and he's running back 27 right now, ADP of 95. Mind you, this ESPN ADP is only going to get more official as we get closer into draft season. I think he's probably going to rise up because a 10th round pick for RJ Harvey feels like really good value for your squad if you're able to get basically your RB3 in the 10th round.
Also, I think for people, a lot of it is the eyeball test. You know, they're not familiar with these rookies. Like, you know them so well because you've been following college, you do the draft. But a lot of people haven't seen them, and then they watch a preseason game and are like, oh, look at RJ Harvey. There's a name that registers because he's getting work and he's looking good. So I agree with you that it's probably going to go up.
All right. That's one rookie
name
under the belt.
recognition.
That's right.
Doesn't matter.
All right. Rookie number 6, Field Yates.
Yeah, it's a player that I think will be 7. It might already be 7, truthfully, and that's Caleb Johnson, the third-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers out of the University of Iowa. For those that follow college football, he had a huge season last year. He was the Iowa offense, which, as we know, much prefers to run the football versus throwing the football. That being said, Caleb Johnson's pre-draft process wasn't great. He had 4.57 40, not a prolific athlete, I would say, by any stretch relative to most running backs. Here's the good. The good is that the team has Jalen Warren as the second running back. The Steelers have appeared reticent to make Warren a guy who's going to carry the ball more than 14 times a game.
Yep.
And the preference might be more for him to handle like 8 carries a game with a few targets. Caleb Johnson could easily lead this team in rushing attempts this season. I wonder if we're going to maybe see a player who's, I'm not saying ceiling, because ceiling is definitely higher than this, but most likely scenario kind of mirrors what Najee Harris was last year, where it's a lot of volume, not very many explosive plays, not super sexy. But if you're playing in week 9 and both of your starting running backs are on a bye and you're like, who am I starting? And Caleb Johnson has a chance for 16 rushing attempts and 2 targets, it might be good enough. So volume should be decent. I don't know that this is a game-changing talent at running back, but volume does matter, and the Steelers are thin at running back beyond Caleb Johnson and Jalen Warren.
Which is interesting because this is an offense that is going to want to run the ball.
Yeah, that much we know about Arthur.
Theoretically.
Yep. Arthur Smith, baby. You know he wants to run that football. So, yeah, and there's, I think some people have wisely pointed out that, like, Caleb Johnson playing alongside Jalen Warren, we know that those veteran quarterbacks, we talk about this all the time with Tom Brady and to a degree now Aaron Rodgers, they want the running back that you can trust right next to you, right? Like, he can pass protect. If the hole is designed to be run, this spot, run through the B gap on this play. They're going to hit the B gap or whatever it is, right? Yep. And we'll see whether Caleb Johnson picks up the nuances fast enough. I would say that the preseason has probably influenced my decision, my opinion, more negatively than positively for Caleb Johnson. But just look at the depth chart, and it's hard to find a pathway for somebody. He's going to play. They need him to. And this team, as we know, they think they're competing for a Super Bowl this year. I disagree with that, but if they're going to get there, it's going to be because they have at least some level
have
of
goals.
balance.
Good to have
it
lofty
is.
goals.
Say what the AFC is just so stacked.
No kidding.
Oh my gosh! Are they the third best team in their own division?
Yeah, might be.
Probably.
Second, probably at best. The Ravens look like the class of the AFC North, but yeah.
When you mentioned Jaylen Warren and you said the team doesn't seem like they're wanting to give him the ball more than 14 times a game, did you look that number up before the show? You just pulled it out of your butt.
I just sort of assumed that the number was maybe 1 week of 17 carries.
His most carries he had last year was 14 carries. So it just feels like you're right on the money. You're in mid-season form right now, feels
That was a complete guess, and I'll take it. But yes, with that, I think that's an important. I'm glad you sort of confirmed that because it's an important thing to note is that even if Jaylen Warren does a lot of the stuff that Aaron Rodgers likes,
yep.
And even if he has veteran status over Caleb Johnson, and even if he's better pass catcher and a more explosive runner, which he definitely was over Najee Harris, we saw there was kind of a cap to what Warren's value would be because of the build that he brings to the table.
Based on how they're going to use him. He only had 4 games where he had more than 10 carries and no games over 14. So it was mostly single-digit carry games. He's going to be utilized in the passing game, as we know, so we'll see what that means for Jaylen Warren. But we got this is 2 running back by committees here for the first 2. RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, and then Caleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren. It kind of makes sense that they fall where they do, given those question marks. Who's next on your board? Another running back, or you're going to a different position?
We're going to wide receiver now, and a player trending up. Tetairoa McMillan, who in the first preseason game for the Carolina Panthers had a pair of impressive catches. He was the 8th overall pick in the draft this past year. 6'4", 219 pounds out of the University of Arizona. He had back-to-back seasons, that is correct, with over 1,300 receiving yards during his final 2 years of college. He was the only player in the FBS that could say that. I remember throughout the pre-draft process, you hear, and you're soliciting opinions from people. You're not soliciting opinions, but still hearing them from people. And it was kind of all over the board for T-Mac. It was, is this guy a top 5 player in the draft? Should the Patriots at number 4 consider him? Should the Jaguars at number 5 consider him? Is this guy going to make it to the Chargers at 22? And then it was water found its level with a lot of guys. Mykel Williams to your Niners, another example of it, where it's this guy is gigantic. He runs great routes. He has really good hands. A quarterback's going to trust him, and touchdowns matter last I checked, and he's a great red zone weapon. All of those led the Panthers to taking him number 8 overall, and while the team does have some other solid receivers, Adam Thielen, perpetually underrated, Xavier Legette was a first-round pick last year, I think the vision for this team is that Tetairoa McMillan quickly becomes the guy they build the passing game around.
Do you have a comp for Tetairoa McMillan? Is it Drake London? Is it Michael Pittman Jr.?
The goal would to be one of those 2 players, right? Okay. Because the knock on Tetairoa McMillan is the speed. He ran at his pro day. For those that don't know this, and I don't know what percentage of our audience does or doesn't know, schools do take a time for pro day. A lot of them will distribute, hey, here's how fast every player was at Arizona.
Yeah, but is that? Can I think that they're also trying to help their players?
Of course,
a little bit?
yeah.
Okay.
There's some notoriously fast tracks at these various schools.
Okay.
But on top of that, every scout goes and sits there with his personal stopwatch. Right. So he was around a 4.55 40. Some people had him a little higher. Some people had him a little bit lower. This is not going to be confused for Matthew Golden, who ran that 4.29 at the combine. But he can just flat out play. We saw that with Carolina in the first preseason game as well. So he intrigues me. Bryce Young, an ascendant player in his own right. But there are a decent number of mouths to feed here. So that there is some competition for T-Mac. But right around wide receiver 33 right now. I've seen his ADP. I know the average is 30, wide receiver 30.
He's wide receiver 33. Yeah. Did you look at my computer?
No, I can sort of
How are you just so good at all the numbers all the time,
He's steel trap.
That's right.
Steel trap mind.
But
Yeah, well, Bryce Young took a nice step forward last year, and you just felt like Carolina wants to put a little bit more around him to help continue that trajectory. And you have a lot of older veterans there, in Chuba Hubbard, and as far as running back, good, nice hands running back for Bryce Young to be able to dump the ball off to.
Yep.
You've got Adam Thielen, as you referenced, but at 35 years old with a significant hamstring injury last year, solid receiver, but not getting any younger. I think this was an important move for them.
I found out that Adam Thielen was in the league when Calvin Johnson was still in the league, and I could not believe Adam Thielen was that old.
Well, Calvin Johnson retired early.
He did, but I couldn't believe that Thielen has been around for that long.
Minnesota
and he's
kid,
still playing at last year.
Oh,
he
solid.
absolutely did stuff for us and the Panthers. So
And everybody missed him when he was gone. There was a void.
100%. Yeah.
Stray thought here, more real than fantasy football, but I appreciate what the Panthers are doing right now. Panthers fans, however many out there are listening to us, I don't know if we have a large audience of Panthers fans or a small one, but for this moment, I like what they're doing. I think they're building this thing the right way. I really appreciate that. And I think culture is probably an overused word sometimes. It's a buzzy word, but it seems like the culture seems like it's real in Carolina right now. The way they've built Bryce Young back up, and that was a tough step to take last year. Benching the number 1 pick, 3 weeks into his second season. Very impressed by what they are doing right now in Carolina. I think this offense is going to be fun to watch this year. Got some holes to still figure out on defense, but the offense, I think, should be one that we enjoy watching come Sundays.
Bryce Young makes me think of my time in basic training when I was in the Air Force, because
Explain that to me.
It's not like they wanted him to not be good, but they basically tore him down so that they could recreate him and build him back up to be like, Bryce, you are our guy.
Yeah.
You're going to be the leader of this franchise. We chose you on purpose. I know it didn't start great, and that, it was one of those things where it's like, we're going to tear you down in order to build you back up.
Yeah.
But now it feels like that build up, like we've already talked about. I mean, this gets used too much, when we say it, but it feels like, this Panthers offense and Bryce Young, I don't want to say to the moon, but they're absolutely ascending here this year, and there's really high expectations given everything they did. So it just makes me think of the way that it's like, I'm sure they didn't want to tear him down. They would have rather just have him be good right out the gate and have to worry about it.
Dude, that's actually a really sweet analogy. But I didn't know that.
That's the military.
I didn't know a whole lot about.
They very much.
That's very cool.
Tear you down to build you back up, kind of thing. And then when you leave basic training, you're like, man, I could do anything.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
That's
pretty dope. Right
it's a cool.
Yeah, that's always the military.
I mean, I'm sure it sucked
reference.
going through it.
Yeah.
Yes, but once you come out on the other side, it's a good feeling. And I've loved seeing Bryce come out on the other side of this.
Well, you talk about culture change, and here's one of those fun facts. This is sort of in my wheelhouse, which is they had some significant changes in their medical staff. They hired Denny Kellington, who was now their VP of Player Health and Performance. He was the athletic trainer at the Buffalo Bills, who was credited with saving Damar Hamlin's life because he was the one who administered CPR. So, they are making some switches in that department, which I think was needed. And I think this is going to help. That matters. We always talk about the players and we talk a lot about the coaches, but there's a lot of other personnel in there that can influence how a team is performing, how comfortable everyone is, the culture in general. Yeah. So really like a couple of the moves that the Panthers made in the offseason.
We talked about him as wide receiver 33 field. Just to put a bow on it, his ADP right now is 86. So coming off in like the middle of the 9th round right now.
And I think moving up a little bit.
I think I agree with that. And I think he'll continue to move up. He's up a little bit since the last preseason game, up almost 4 spots. Yep. And I think that's going to continue with some of the positive vibes we're getting there.
For sure. And he was the 2nd wide receiver taken in this year's draft class, but the first wide receiver only taken in this year's draft class, because ahead of him, and the next rookie I want to discuss is Travis Hunter. Man, what do we do here?
How do you do it?
Travis Hunter is a unique talent. I've said this before, but I'll reiterate it on this show. I believe that Travis Hunter is in the same category of player as where we thought Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze were at coming into the NFL last year. I say that because independent of what the circumstances were for Malik Neighbors, where I erred in my preseason projection last year, having him as like wide receiver 18 as opposed to like wide receiver 5, was just the idea that like talent prevails, right? And just like even if he's playing with perhaps the worst quarterback situation in the league, you pepper this guy with targets, amazing things can happen in fantasy football. So in Travis Hunter, I'm trying to be a little more open to like the possibility of a lot of different things taking place. I think there's a reasonable case to make that the most likely way that Travis Hunter is used this year is A good amount on offense, a good amount on defense. But a good amount on offense and a good amount on defense might mean less than what we kind of need for him to make the most sense in fantasy. So you and I had this conversation on a prior episode, Daniel, but it was so far back in the preseason. But we were sitting at lunch one day here in the ESPN cafeteria, and we asked who was the most fantasy relevant player that played under 60% of his team's offensive snaps last year.
Yep.
You pulled up this list, and there was one player that did anything for anybody on the list, and it was Xavier Worthy.
Yep.
And Worthy, of course, was this unique situation, right? Because he barely plays, or he plays a lot less early in the season, especially when Rashee Rice was going. And then once the Chiefs kind of had no choice but to rely on Xavier Worthy, he became a fantasy factor.
Yep.
But in those games in which he was playing, 40% of the snaps, he was not. So Hunter needs to be at probably 70% of the snaps or higher. We are rolling the dice in calling him a potential top 25 wide receiver because they might just be like, dude, he's playing 60% on defense too. He's going to play 60% on offense, and that's all you're getting. We need to look out for the young man's conditioning. Yes. And yet there is a possibility too that the offensive-minded head coach Liam Cohen, for a team that more than anything else, the way the Jaguars get good is if Trevor Lawrence hits.
Yes.
More than any other thing, no matter how great Travis Hunter is and how great the coaching staff or the GM is, if Trevor Lawrence becomes a top 10 quarterback going forward, this team will be legit. More so than anything that could happen beyond that, right? He is the straw that can stir the drink. How do you get your quarterback right? You do everything you can to help him. And one of those things would be number 11 on one side, Brian Thomas Jr., no, number 7, excuse me, not his college number. 7 on one side and number 12 on the other, Travis Hunter, and playing him a lot.
A bunch.
So it's really, you got to decide, are you taking the pessimistic or optimistic view on, it's almost the optimistic or the rational view, the pragmatic view on Travis Hunter.
Well, and I think this could shape up a little more as we approach the season. I mean, we haven't really heard from them, but I think it will become a little more clear. The problem is for where he's going to be drafted, because the more we talk about him and the more hype he gets, I feel like people are more comfortable drafting. If you go back to the mock draft project that we did, he was way lower than what he's going right now. Because now people are starting to see he really could be an offensive player. When I think this is something where as the season goes on, he could really emerge. And it may not pay off for you in the first few weeks. So you have to look at him like that. And so where are you willing to draft someone who may end up getting more time on offense? Because as you say, if he and Trevor Lawrence start to click, aren't you thinking, it's not like everything's set in stone necessarily. They may say, we're going to really utilize you here and to be mindful of you're not going to be able to play 100 snaps in total on the game, offense and defense. So are we going to shift you to more of an offensive player because that's where our need is? For fantasy purposes, that might not pay off until you get later in the season.
The other thing that I would say here is important to remind people, and these guys each have different circumstances, but I always sort of feel like you've got room for one on your roster. And what I mean by that is, let's use just wide receivers in this case. If you were drafting today, there's still more information that we don't know. Rashee Rice, we don't know how many games he is going to miss. Chris Godwin, we don't know how many games he is going to miss. Stephon Diggs, who I guess in theory is going to be ready for week 1, but he's banged up, or he's coming back from this ACL injury, right? Travis Hunter, you don't know how much he's going to play on offense versus defense. There's room for one of those types of guys on your roster.
Yeah.
If you're in the draft and you're you already drafted Travis Hunter and you drafted Chris Godwin, there's a scenario in which, hey, Hunter, you don't play him in week 1 because you're concerned. The Jaguars play him 52% of the snaps. He has 4 targets, 2 catches for 31 yards. He makes a sick pass breakup on 3rd down on defense, and they're thrilled because they got what they needed.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there and you're like, well, I don't know this for a fact. You don't have Chris Godwin in week 1. Maybe you don't have him in week 2. All of a sudden, you got 2 roster spots that at the beginning of the season, am I basically just I'm not, they are not a total waste, but they are certainly causing some serious restrictions on your flexibility elsewhere. So draft strategy is important. And when you're in the mock draft room or in the actual draft room, just be mindful that Travis Hunter is the kind of player that while he has an amazing amount of upside, just be mindful that he might influence how you address other players, like the specter of a Rasheed Rice suspension or an injury player or maybe a contract situation player like a Terry McLaurin.
Even just a strategy perspective, Field, if you decide you want to attack quarterback and tight end and grab 2 running backs, and now all of a sudden, like, wide receiver is actually a pretty thin position for your squad.
Yeah.
I mean, he can, I don't want to say accidentally, but accidentally be your wide receiver 2 or 3. And I'd probably feel more comfortable with him as the wide receiver 4 of my fantasy squad, right? The guy that I feel like I can bring off the bench. I got other guys in front of him that I can utilize, but the talent is too good to pass up.
I don't think you'll get him.
If I get to that point.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get him. Not after all the chatter about him, not after people see him play in the preseason. He makes some spectacular catches, and the hype is going to move him up, and you can't get him at wide receiver 4.
He is wide receiver 27 right now.
His ADP will climb.
Yeah.
And he's at 72.
This is, I think a lot of our audience is not this, but there are a lot of people that don't like listen to fantasy football podcasts or watch shows about fantasy football. They play in one league in their office and they know football and they know some of the names and they just draft them high, right? It's like Patrick Mahomes is going to have a serious ADP every single year because he's the most visible player in the league,
values.
right?
Yep.
Kind of good at real football. So
Yeah. And Travis, so like the upside for Travis Hunter,
Huge.
massive.
Yeah.
He just has a different level of risk that I don't care how good you are at fantasy football. Like none of us know because we don't know. The Jaguars probably don't know themselves exactly what their vision is.
exactly. That was my point with like how it could shift as the season goes on.
But if you're in our YouTube chat right now, I would love to know, just as a part of this discourse with other people in our chat, or maybe we can throw up a poll, are you considering drafting Travis Hunter this year, or are you nervous about the uncertainties that Field laid out? And so you're like, you know what? I'm just going to stay away and draft a guy that I feel like I have more information on. I would love to know the way that people feel like they're going to approach Travis Hunter. One of the things... Actually, we have a mailbag. We're going to throw this up right now. We have a Jags mailbag question.
Okay.
This is a great time to be able to bring it up. We'll throw it up on the screen as we do this. One thing that you need to be able to make sure that you talk to about your league as well, if you lose by 1.8 points and you've got Travis Hunter in your starting lineup and he has an interception, he's not going to get 2 points for your fantasy squad as an interception. It's just making sure that your team is on the same page with that. This question comes from Daniel Lohr. Will Travis take targets away from BTJ, or will he actually help Brian Thomas Jr.'s stock?
I've gotten a lot of questions similar to Daniel's question. In this case, Daniel Lohr. My answer is yes.
Well, yes to which part? Yes to both?
I think both are possible.
Right.
And I think they kind of like equalize each other. They cross each other out is what I would say.
Okay.
Is that Brian Thomas Jr., and maybe it was because the Jags were so bad last year, but at some point I was like, is anybody going to cover this guy last year? We talk about like top wide receivers and the threat of like, targets being taken because of other great players. And it's like, has the first round edition of Jordan Addison really changed things for Justin Jefferson?
It has not, no.
Has Jamar Chase been impacted by T. Higgins?
Negative.
So, like, I tend to not put too much stock into that stuff. I just think if you like Brian Thomas Jr., plenty of reasons to believe that Brian Thomas Jr. will have a 27% target share again this year. Where I think it matters is where there's a guy who's being thrust into a larger role than maybe his skill set suggests he should be, and then the team invests in like a true blue player. But like for true blue wide receivers, which I unequivocally believe Brian Thomas Jr. is, not worried about it.
Yeah.
I was just looking back because I wanted to refresh my memory on when some of Brian Thomas Jr.'s best games were. And
Down the stretch?
Yes, but you know who was out? Evan Engram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so...
and Trevor Lawrence for a lot of that, too.
Right, exactly.
Mac
and
Jones was throwing the football.
Mac Jones, who looks pretty good, is back up for the 49ers. But in any case... I think that, it's a different scenario, right? If you've got two healthy guys who are capable. So as talented as Brian Thomas Jr. is and as good as what we saw and the recency bias of the end of the season colors that for us, I think it'll probably normalize out when you get Travis Hunter on the field.
I like to think about it like this, and then we can move on to your next player, Field. In this situation, new head coach, right? Liam Cohen is going to come in. We're hoping that Trevor Lawrence takes another step. Rather than feel like one person is going to cannibalize someone else's targets, it feels more like the rising tide lifts all boats kind of an argument.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, there are parts of me that wonder if we've just completely undersold how great this offense
Could be.
It's such a
Could is the operative word,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But like this is a.
But we've seen Liam Cohen do it
Yeah,
with
he's
multiple receivers.
Trevor
so
Lawrence
that I
was the
think
number
is
one
what
overall pick for a reason.
And I think the possibility is there. I'd really like, come on, let's do this for the Jags fans. You
Yes.
know, let's just
Yeah.
get them an offense that
I'm with you. You
wanna do
Everybody's
it? You want me to
excited
do it?
about.
Do it.
Duval.
So you got to do it like Liam Cohen did it.
No, I will
Don't
not.
like that.
No.
And then he got better at it.
Yeah, he got better at it as he goes. That's so funny.
Oh, God.
All right, that was rookie number what, Field? Travis Hunter was rookie number 4?
Number 4. So down to the final 3 here. And I'm not going to spoil it, but they might all play the same position going forward. Let's go to Tayvon Henderson, who we've been talking a lot about recently.
Where was he before this weekend's game? Would he have been farther down this list? Did
I
it
think
put
he
him up?
would have been like somewhere, like at worst 5, but maybe 3.
Okay.
So Tayvon Henderson had the 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown that probably everybody saw. Fast.
Unbelievable.
He also had an 18-yard run that you think back to last season, you think about offenses, and the Patriots specifically, every point they scored, it felt like they scratched and clawed for it. It was like, there's a 52-yard field goal. Like, that was deserved because they gave everything they could to get that 52-yard field goal.
Yep.
With Tayvon Henderson, what it allows them to do is like every once in a while, it's like you just little toss pitch. Next thing you know, you go from the 32-yard line to the opposite 32-yard line, right? The Patriots needed some easy buttons on offense, and Tayvon Henderson gives them that. Ramondre Stevenson is a fine player. He's fine. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's terrible. But he was very, very average last year. And it's not the same coaching staff that was there when he got this big extension, which might have been the strongest evidence to support that Ramondre Stevenson is the starting running back. I think he'll play a role. I think he was fine on whatever night they played last week against the Commanders, Thursday or Friday. This, and I'll continue to use this analogy, reminds me of where we were last year with the Buccaneers and Bucky Irving plus Rachaad White. Rachaad White's fine. He was a fine running back. But at some point, the better player is going to play more. Even if Stevenson has 15 carries in week 1, it wouldn't surprise me if Henderson by week 4 or 5 is leading the team consistently in carries.
Yeah.
He's a serious weapon in the passing game. And there's just potential for boom games because Stevenson only got to 20-point efforts last year on the strength of like, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, 21 carries for 49 yards, 2 touchdowns, plus like 3 catches for 8 yards. And it's an ugly 20
volume.
fantasy
It was,
points.
yeah. It was,
Henderson might have a week where it's like 11 carries for 105 yards and a touchdown, plus 4 catches for 54 yards, right? Like he's an explosive player who I just think brings something to the table the Patriots desperately need. He is not going to push for 300 carries this year. He is not going to take this job all by himself from the beginning of the season. The Patriots need to be smart with him. He was at his best last year in college when he had Quinshon Judkins as his running mate, the Lightning to the Thunder, right? The Patriots will, I believe, continue to rely on Ramondre Stevenson, but make no mistake about it. We're looking for high upside players. This is a high upside player.
Yeah, he gives me, and I don't want to say it's like full-on Jahmyr Gibbs vibes, but I think about Gibbs' rookie season. Like he had David Montgomery that he was competing with touches, right? But you knew that there was going to be a time with a running back like that. I mean, you're talking about a guy taking it from one 32 to the other 32. All you need is one big play, and all of a sudden it's like, man, we might get to the point we can't put this genie back in the bottle. We've got to embrace this, right? I think David Montgomery is a much better running back than Ramondre Stevenson is. And so if you're talking about a guy that you can get good value on now that is only going to seemingly, in our estimation, gain value as the season goes on, it's a great way to be able to look at that pick of, I'm getting a guy probably lower in value or lower in ADP than where I think he's going to end up at the end of the season when I'm fighting for a championship.
I said this about the Jaguars and Trevor Lawrence. Same thing applies for the Patriots. Nothing is more important to the team's long-term success than Drake May being really good.
Yep.
Best way to do that, surround him with really good players.
Yeah, 100%. All right, I want to quickly pay this off really fast. I had asked the question in chat.
Okay.
Are you avoiding or are you targeting our guy, Travis Hunter, this year in drafts?
and
64% of our YouTube chat is avoiding Travis Hunter.
Ooh,
in
interesting.
drafts.
Wow.
I wonder if just the uncertainty is like, you know what? There's enough players around him that I just feel maybe a better vibes from, or I know I have more certainty around what their position is, how they're going to approach it. I wonder if that's what it is. Or just, you know, everyone has different lines where they're going to draw like, I'm okay with this guy, but I'm not okay with this guy. So we're an emotional group. That's what fantasy football managers are. I'm curious to see where that lands if we get closer towards draft season, given the ADP that he's currently at.
I feel like the percentage split is kind of like what his offense versus defensive
64%
64 versus 36.
I need him to be higher than 64%.
Just saying that's sort of where we've been hanging out and what we don't know, or at least where he might start, and it could shift.
I'm down for him to do 60% of the offensive snaps, 60% of the defensive snaps, and just play 120% of the total snaps. That works for me.
60% of the time.
That's right. It works every time.
Nailed it.
That's right. All right. After Tayvon Henderson, Field Yates, I feel like there's two names.
Yeah, no surprises here.
Yeah.
So let's go to it first. Let's go to Los Angeles. Omar Hampton, running back out of University of North Carolina, who 6'2", 221 pounds, ran a 4.45 40. He had back-to-back seasons with 1,500 plus total yards at North Carolina. He's a real weapon in the passing game as well. He was at the college level. At the pro ranks, he goes to the Chargers, which when he first got drafted, you're like, well, Najee Harris is there. Najee Harris is still there.
Too long.
But Najee Harris, as many people listening know, he had this scary accident on 4th of July with some fireworks that has his eye in a bad place, and he is still not participating in practice. He is on the non-football injury list as of August, today's the 12th.
And as only Jim Harbaugh can do, because you recall I was at Chargers camp this week.
Yeah, what do you say?
So
Gotta get,
You gotta do the impression. You gotta do the impression.
I can't bring myself to quite do it. But these poor props to Chris Rim, who covers the team for us, who every day is trying to get some kind of information that we can actually use. And Jim Harbaugh's like, well, he's better today than he was yesterday. He'll probably be better tomorrow than he was today.
I'm already
I just.
And you're like, what does that
Jim.
mean? And because they're seeing him, we talked about this on the show last night. Najee Harris is now, you see him in a helmet with a visor.
Yeah.
Doing some laps, wearing a weighted vest, doing some work on the side, like walking, conditioning. And, poor Chris is like, so his conditioning.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Obviously,
that's all we got.
That's it.
But the bottom line is Omar Hampton I saw a whole lot of, just working like crazy in practice. And so if there was going to be a competition, I mean, I think people thought maybe this is going to play out during camp because we're going to see how many reps Omar Hampton gets and can he take advantage of it. Well, he's certainly taken advantage of it.
absolutely. And we make jokes, obviously, like this is not at Najee Harris'
Oh,
expense. It's a
course
very
not.
serious injury, and we wish him all the best. However, just the way that Jim handles it, it's like, can you just do us fantasy
is about
managers
us,
like a
yeah.
little favor? Just give us like a breadcrumb of something. The two running backs that have seen their ADP move the most over the last 7 days at ESPN Fantasy.
I'm going to guess Tayvon Henderson.
Tayvon Henderson and Omar Hampton still moving up the boards. I wonder when it'll get to the point with the lack of information that we have about Najee Harris, where have we gone too far on elevating Omar Hampton?
Perhaps. So let's just do the really easy, strong case for Omar Hampton is I mentioned some of the physical tools earlier. He goes to an offense that wants to run this power running scheme.
Yep.
They want to run the football just in general, and they are a good offense who could score lots of touchdowns. And while Najee Harris is an accomplished player, like Hampton, they might just be like, all right, this guy's just flat better than him. We're going to play him a lot. I'm not going to call it the downside scenario, but the mitigating factors, the places for concern for Omar Hampton are as follows. They already lost their starting left tackle in Rashawn Slater to a season-ending injury. That sucks. Feel terrible for him.
Agreed.
Just like a week after he signed this massive new deal. So
Patellar tendon rupture too.
not good.
Big.
So it's a big one there. On top of that, Najee Harris, I just sort of said maybe he takes over for him. Like maybe he doesn't, right? Najee is just sort of fine, right? It's sort of what I was talking about with Ramondre Stevenson. Good enough to have a role, not good enough to hold off the player entirely throughout the course of the year. But if Najee handles, if he's akin to J.K. Dobbins with what they have in R.J. Harvey in Denver, then it would definitely take a little bit of the ceiling off of Omar Hampton. And then Mike has been talking about this. How much passing game utilization do we expect in this Greg Roman offense? If this is Detroit and you have Jahmyr Gibbs being running routes all the time, there's crazy upside. Hampton might be utilized more as a volume player. This could be like, some of the seasons that we have seen from Jonathan Taylor recently, right? Where it's great volume on the ground.
Yep.
Not enough volume in the air to take him to that very top tier. Now, Hampton getting even to the Jonathan Taylor tier of running back 8 or 10 would be elite, but like a discounted version of what I just described for Jonathan Taylor. But, at this point, I'm kind of making the case on both sides. My biggest takeaway is that he is a top 20 running back right now.
Yes. He's absolutely an RB2. If you want to wait longer than that, you're just not going to be able to get him. I mean, he's going to go way before that in your draft. This is just the emotional side of me, and you guys can tell me that I'm ridiculous, but when we're at a point where we're in the off season, and football is literally weeks away before we're playing meaningful football games, and we know a player's hurt, and the team is just purposely being cryptic about somebody's injury, and we haven't heard a peep about anything else. It makes me think about Joe Mixon in the same way. It does not give me good vibes around that situation for that player. And so, without knowing anything, I don't know, and I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but the idea that it's like, we're not being forthcoming. We're not even going to give you updates. Usually we talk about injuries. Matthew Stafford's dealing with a back, but we still think it's going to be these things. It's like nothing. And when you hear nothing, that silence almost speaks louder to me than just like giving me something.
I would say that in some cases it does. In the case of the Chargers, that's just Jim Harbaugh's MO on everyone and as little as he can during the season. So obviously they don't have to file injury reports until we get to the season, the practice injury reports. So other than just what people glean from observation, there really isn't much that they have to give just yet. Yeah. You referenced Rashawn Slater's injury, and obviously terrible for the offensive line, but the Chargers are lucky because they have so much depth there. And obviously, they already announced that they're moving Joe Alt over to the left side, and that's where he played in college. So that was my concern, was how might this affect the run game and what are they going to do there? But I think the fact that they also have time to work on that. It's not like it's happening in season, so they can shift some things around. And if anyone can do it, I think it's the Chargers.
Absolutely.
Their offensive coordinator.
So Omar Hampton comes as number 2 field, which means Tyler Luke comes in as your number 1 rookie this year.
Isaac Tesla.
Tesla, that's right.
No, number 1 rookie is, unsurprisingly, Ashton Jeanty, who's going to go in the first round of almost every draft. Jeanty, who had just a remarkable career at Boise State. Last season finished just behind Travis Hunter for the Heisman Trophy. Mike has a gigantic projection for him. Nearly 300 fantasy points on nearly 1,250 rushing yards. But every reason to believe this player will have 300 carries, right? I mean, he should be toting the rock 20-ish times a game for Las Vegas. He'll be a factor in the passing game as well. I mentioned this earlier today on some show. I apologize for which one it was. But 567 receiving yards as a junior back in 2023 for Ashton Jeanty. Really? That led all FBS running backs. Last year, his receiving numbers were okay, mostly because Boise was like, let's just hand the football off to you, because every fifth time we do that, you run for 50 yards and a touchdown. So very, very capable pass catcher. It is a thin backfield behind him. Raheem Mostert, Sincere McCormick amongst the names you need to know there. But Jeanty should be very, very, very busy this year.
Do you need to know them?
I mean, sickos. Yes.
Stephania.
I'm just saying.
So probably I think the scariest part for Ashton Jeanty is, I don't think it's about him. It's the unknown of the offensive line, which applies to a lot of offensive lines, to be fair. But there are some people that after one preseason game in which Ashton Jeanty had 3 carries for -1 yards, they're like, dude, this offensive line is going to be so bad. Did you see the angles that defensive players were taking to basically give Ashton Jeanty 0 daylight? I did, because he had -1 rushing yards. That being said, they'll figure that out. Like, it's a move. It's a work in progress offensive line. But it's not going to be so bad that Ashton Jeanty is not going to be able to run for 1,000 yards. I point to recent seasons like Saquon Barkley as a rookie, where it wasn't like that was a great offensive line, and Saquon Barkley still found his way to the single best season for a rookie in PPR scoring history.
Yeah, I feel like with Chip Kelly there, this
Great scheme,
yeah. I think they're going to get creative, and and he was always, when he was in college too, a lot of things that you didn't see until it was game time.
Yep.
So I'm not worried about Ashton Jeanty.
I'm not. The upside's obvious. I think the question is to you guys, like, all right, where are you taking? What's the earliest you've taken Ashton Jeanty?
7.
Okay. So if you had the 6th pick in the draft, let's assume that the first 5 picks are probably, again, whatever order, Bijan, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
6, you're taking?
At 6, I would go. I mean, I'm on record for talking about CMC. That's where I would go.
Same. I'm taking CMC before Saquon.
Decisive? Is it? Oh, okay. Is it decisive? Is it like coin flip between him and between him and Ashton Genty?
I could coin flip.
Okay.
If you told me you want to do Genty.
I put it this way. I would go CMC first if I had the choice of the two. Rarely have I found myself in that position because even when I get, this middle of the round pick, they're usually gone. Yeah. We'll see what happens tonight. But Ashton Genty, I think in the beginning of our mock draft project, was he going like beginning of second round or end of first round?
End of round 1, yeah.
Yeah, and he just kept moving up because what happens when you're doing these mock drafts, people see, oh, he's popular. I'm going to have to take him earlier. I'm going to have to take him earlier. And I think that's going to keep happening. And it also depends on your feelings about how much you care about getting a top tier running back.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. We spoke about this and that how we feel there's a bit of a drop. Ashton Genty is on the end of that first tier or one of the 4, I think, that you would take there. And not everybody puts CMC in that category. You and I feel a little differently, but it's like, who am I thinking of? Bijan.
Yep.
Bijan.
I'm sorry.
Bijan, nice.
I'm sorry.
Bijan. There you go. You can put a quarter
I poured
in
a quarter in
there
the
you go.
jar. Me, of all people, should care about name pronunciation. Bijan.
Stephania.
I do.
Every
That's
time
how
you say,
Siri talks.
That's
to me.
yes.
that's what we should do now.
I can't even train my phone to get it right.
Every time you say Bijan, we'll just respond.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephania.
Thank you, Stephania.
I'll call you Dan. I don't know what you call
Don't
me. But I don't
call-
really have a nickname.
You
but
don't.
If they're
Filed.
Yeah.
Filed, yeah.
Filed.
Fields. Call me Fields.
It feels-
Apparently,
oh, yeah.
I got to be honest with what you got going on with the hair and all the suit and everything. We're calling you John Wick in chat right now, the YouTube chat.
Okay.
John Wick.
Listen, being compared to Keanu Reeves is not too bad.
No. Let's do some other Keanu Reeves role because Field is nice. Well, no.
I
I was
got one
going to
for you.
say, I can't. The John Wick, he loved his puppy. But I
Yes.
can't think about John Wick without thinking about the puppy.
Okay.
So we
About,
can't call him John Wick.
How about Shane Falco?
Yes.
Shane Falco.
I'm fine with
There
Shane
we go.
Falco.
There we go.
Yeah,
That's
I can
where
do
we're
that.
landing.
I like that.
Yeah.
Ashton Genty, I want to say this.
Anyway,
I want to say this really
Ashton.
quickly. Where we drafted Ashton Genty in our mock drafts is earlier than what current ADP is. I think with us drafting with our other ESPN analysts, we recognized that we wanted to make sure if you want to get that running back, he usually was like a tail end of the first round guy. Right now, ADP is 13.7 on Ashton Genty. So in a 10-team league, you could get him at the start of a second round if you want to go with one of those high-end wide receivers instead.
Well, you
but it
could
all depends.
today.
It's just average draft position. And if there's one manager in your league that's like, you know what, I'm all in on Genty this year, then he's not going to make it. That's the thing. Like, ADP is not the end-all, be-all with where a player is going to come off the board.
That's the whole know your league thing. And if you draft with a bunch of people who are like, I want a number 1 running back no matter what, then
He's going to be one of those guys. He
he's
can
gonna
be an
gone
anchor
early.
running back for your squad. Let's do a quick recap field of your list, running back from 1 through 7. Your top 7 rookies here to target.
Ashton Genty, Omar Hampton, Tayvon Henderson, Travis Hunter, Tetairoa McMillan, Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey. I believe you guys each had your own top 7.
Yeah, I didn't really. I don't think I did the assignment the same way.
Okay,
Wouldn't be
Dan.
the first time that I did not get the assignment. Me, the former teacher who just interpreted the assignment my own.
Sure.
You were just like looking at players all over the board, you're saying?
Yes, and I was kind of like, these are 7 rookies I'd like to have on my squad. Like I might make a move for them, not necessarily the top 7 and the ones who I think are the 7 best.
Got it.
But like, if I could get this person at the right spot in the draft, they'd be somebody I'd target.
Let's throw your list up there then, Stefania. We'll
we gotta
kind
do
of cross-reference how it
Looking
works
at 'em.
between Field and
look
yours.
at
So
who
you
I
got
have.
Ashton Genty, Omar
these are-
Hampton,
we're-
Travis
yeah.
Hunter, Amecha Ibuka. We did not talk about him. Tayvon Henderson, Tyler Warren, and Cam Scadaboo.
That's pretty similar.
Let's have a conversation
It
about
is.
Amecha Ibuka, Stefania. You got him at 4.
Yes, well, did Adam Schefter give glowing reports out of Buccaneers camp
Did,
about
yeah.
what they're thinking about Amecha Ibuka
Yep.
during training camp, that he has really shown up and been just super impressive with how he's conducted himself, how he's picked up the offense. But when they drafted him in the first round, I think it caused a lot of surprise. People reacted like, whoa, they don't need receivers. They've got Mike Evans. They've got Chris Godwin. Mike Evans, who I still have a lot of faith in, but he will be 32 years old when the
54.
season begins. Not 54. 32.
He feels like he's 54.
Stop it. for those of us representing the demographic
Stop.
of, protecting the older receivers and running backs. Anyway, but it's Chris Godwin, who is coming off a major injury, a very violent injury that I don't think people give enough credit to how serious it was. Fractured dislocation of his ankle, had to have a second surgery after he had the original fracture repaired. And I talked about this last night on the Fantasy Football Now show. This is a player that they signed for 3 years, a player that they love in Tampa Bay. He is beloved by the franchise. You want to see him finish out his career successfully. And coming back from these ankle injuries, we don't know what the inside of that joint looks like. Sometimes you can have trauma, you can have joint damage, you have a lot of soft tissue injury. If you push a player back too quickly, you can set them up for not only a compensatory injury when they come back, but you can make it so that it's tough for them to ever return to the level they had before and then decline over time. So I think they're most likely, despite all the good vibes you're hearing out of, he's exactly where we want him to be. I wouldn't be surprised if, with the success Amecha Ibuka is having already this early, if they sort of allow him to rise and work Chris Godwin in easily.
Am I thinking
slowly?
I feel like we've talked about these players in the past. Am I wrong? And you can correct me. Was Dalvin Cook one of those guys that we felt like the team rushed him back a little too quickly?
I used to use him as the example. He was coming back from an ACL, and we see very often hamstring as a secondary injury. And Dalvin Cook, it was the volume of work that he was carrying at the time, and he looked so good, and everybody was really excited. And then he had a hamstring injury, and it cost him the
Even
bulk
more
of that
time.
season.
Yeah.
And it was the following year that he came back, 2 years post ACL, and then was phenomenal once again. Chris Godwin came back and was actually pretty good coming off the ACL, MCL. I think that was 2021. But then had a hamstring injury. Now, it didn't cost him nearly as much time. But again, just a reminder that it's not always when they come back. It's the volume of work when they first come back. How did they look? How did they react? Chris Godwin's not practicing.
Yeah.
Part of the test is, especially when you have a joint injury, how do you feel after that first practice? If you get swelling after you go out one day, they may hold you out again. Nothing is preordained in terms of the timeline. So I believe them when they say that, but I also think they're more likely to err on the side of caution. We shall see.
No, it makes a ton of sense. Honestly, my list looks almost exactly like Field, so I want to ask one more question about one of Stefania's players. Field, you didn't have a tight end in there, and each of the last 2 years we had Sam Laporta and Brock Bowers just crush it as rookie tight ends.
Yeah.
Obviously, Tyler Warren, really good. Colston Loveland, really good. Is there one of them that you prefer this year in fantasy football?
I think I prefer Colston Loveland because the quarterback play I trust more. Which, it's not that I still, there's still some trust that Caleb and I need to work through and develop ourselves. But with the Colts, it really is, it's scary. Some of the stuff, it just feels like every day you're reading something curious out of Colts training camp.
I just wish they could be in a bubble for a while because I feel like there's so much potential there. And it's like, let's just let them go, sort it out, and then exposed to the public opinion and the chatter and the talking, because I feel like
in the Colts, in the quarterbacks, or
Colts.
Oh yeah,
Colts. I'm saying I would like them to go work through their stuff, and then let's see the finished product. Because the problem is everything that happens, then it's like it's blown up, and we're talking about this, and then we're going back to last year and talking about that, and so it's become this story that just doesn't quit. And I think they still have a lot of potential there. We'll see how things shake out of the quarterback position. But Tyler Warren, if things go well, to me, has the chance to be a huge target. I believe Anthony Richardson's going to end up with the job. I know that maybe that's not a popular take. I don't know I don't know where we are in week one, but I do think if he has success, let's put it this way, if Anthony Richardson ultimately is a quarterback, and if he has success, Tyler Warren will be a decent part of it.
Producer Tyler, other Tyler, this is Tyler Warren we're talking about.
Yes.
I think we should stash this idea away, is that there's maybe a good show that it's not things that are super long shots that could happen, but things that could happen in fantasy football. Not betting the mortgage on it, but talking about Tyler Warren and his upside, or Colston Loveland and his upside. These guys were 2 top 14 picks.
Yep.
At a position where we don't often see super highly drafted tight ends. We can talk more about the chances of these guys having a fantasy relevant season. There's just a lower floor compared to some of the rookies that we have already discussed today.
Agreed.
At running back.
And it feels like the Colts have tried to do the thing that some of these other squads have done, which is let's just add a bunch of pass catchers. Like Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, I think, was a former third rounder. Alec Pierce was a second rounder. Adonai Mitchell was a second rounder.
Yeah.
Now they added Tyler Warren as a first
Every
rounder.
time I pick a new Colt to get behind, it backfires on me. This is going to be the year.
It hasn't
the
worked
fifth
so
time
far.
I've tried.
So
but
yeah, we'll see how that
we'll
works.
see.
Let's hope
And then,
that works out.
did you want me to explain my Cam Scatterboo? I like him as a player. I think that he's one I believe as the season goes on, you're going to get more production out of
see more
him.
out of him.
So it really depends where he falls in the draft. But I kind of left it because I think now that he's got this minor hamstring issue he's dealing with, I think the barometer on him has gone up and down and up and down. I feel like it's down again, or at least flat. So to me, that's a great time to draft him because I might get him for good value, have him on my bench, and then if the opportunity presents itself, I'll be glad I acquired him.
Daniel's a big crypto guy these days. He's always telling us, like, dude, buy the dip, man.
Buy the
Buy
dip.
the dip.
I'm like, bro, I already
I've said
spent
that a
all my
bunch
money.
this year.
You
No,
have.
dude,
I have.
it's okay. We were talking about Bored Apes a lot recently, and next thing you know, we're talking about
Bored
buying
Apes.
dips.
True. Yeah.
What did I miss?
You don't know Bored Apes? Oh, Stephania.
Is that after school?
We got to talk about our NFT collection after the
NFTs,
show. No
right.
big deal.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I'll throw mine up there real quick just so we can see my top 7 rookies. They're quite similar to Fields for what it's worth. I got Ashton Jeanty, Omar Hampton,
Okay. So it's the
Tayvon
same
Henderson,
deal,
RJ
just-
Harvey, Travis Hunter, Tetairoa McMillan, and Caleb Johnson. We just a slightly different order, but like I view everyone basically the same as you do from that standpoint. So it was a good show.
Yeah,
we'll talk about these
Stephen
rookies
A.
again.
Oh,
yeah.
slap some gums with Stephen A. right now.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm going to go join Clinton and friends.
Oh,
right.
love that. And I got ESPN Bet Live in just a little bit. So we're all off to a couple
I
of different
know.
things. Check us out throughout the rest of the day and make sure you check in 7 p.m. on ESPN2 for our fantasy football marathon draft. It's going to be a ton of fun. We love you guys. Don't forget to love each other, and we will see you later on tonight.
Happy
Later.
drafting.